And hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, my Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I'm the aforementioned Emil Amok, and I am just like the Pope, made in the USA, tariff free. I am tariff free. Uh, it's exciting. The Pope did his first mass, and I put out my first piece on the Pope on Inquirer.net. You can go to Inquirer to see what I had to say. Basically, I was I I was feeling sorry for the Filipinos who were hoping for a Filipino Pope. They were looking at uh, Tagle. They were looking at David. They didn't make it, and apparently. And I'm just telling my fellow Filipinos, Asian American Filipinos, that and what's better for Filipino Americans than a Filipino Pope? Well, an American Pope who can effectively communicate a vision of peace and love and unity in a world troubled by an amoral and divisive American presidency. That's what I said in my piece yesterday. Apparently, the Cardinals came out and told reporters that no, it wasn't because Prevost, I like Prevost, Robert Prevost, because, prayer, Prevost. Now, Pope Leo XIV. I like to say XIV instead of 14 because XIV makes it sound like, oh, we're getting them intravenously, like we need something. America, the world, Catholicism needs an intravenous shot right now, considering the state of the world. But the Cardinals were saying in reports today, I wrote my piece in Inquirer.net yesterday because I wanted to be first out there letting people know how I felt about a made for USA Pope is being the anti-Trump. And it just made sense that an American Pope was out there to be the antidote to Trump and his tech billionaires and his gaudy gold redecoration of the White House and his undoing of democracy and his celebration of the wealthy and the tech bros, as I said. We needed someone who can continue on as Francis, lauding or protecting the poor, protecting migrants, protecting immigrants. But we needed someone who really understood the concept, the notion that I always hear in church, no matter, how long it's been since I've been to Mass, I always get this phrase. It's in a hymn, it's in it's in the missal, that concept of the first will be last and the last will be first. Very Catholic. And, very anti-Trumpian. Because Trumpian is the first will be first all the time. And we will continue being first because we're greeting MFers. Right? So, Prevost, Pope Leo, the perfect antidote to Trumpism. So that was my take yesterday. But today the reports were that it didn't matter that he was American. In fact, they wanted someone who was less American. They wanted the American who was less American. And, Prevost was that guy. I didn't realize he had a Spanish background. Well, he had, I read one thing that said he doesn't have Spanish ethnicity, I don't believe. But he, of course, did his missionary work in Peru, and then he worked in the Vatican. He was perfect in a lot of ways. A lot of people liked his quiet nature. He's a mathematician, which is where I depart from him. Because, math, oh, God. He's also a good listener. They liked him for all that. Anyway, so my take on Prevost, a.k.a. Pope Leo XIV. Check it out on Inquirer.net. In a second, I'm going to bring up a fellow altar boy, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, regular on the show, to talk about this. But first, I want to tell you about something coming up. The coincidence of Mother's Day, the new Pope, and I'm doing a show, or not a show, a mini show, like a 5 to 8 minute thing at the Marsh, 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco on Monday. Check it out. If you're watching the screen, I put up, you can get tickets, sliding scale. You can pay very little or a whole lot. It's up to you. Sliding scale. The Marsh, great performance space. I love the Marsh. That's where I started my journey. Okay, really, I actually started it at the Berkeley Rep. I took a class there once in 2013. But it was 2014 that I began in earnest looking at solo performance and performance art, and then later more stand-up, and then more storytelling. The Marsh, great place. It's in Berkeley and also in San Francisco. In San Francisco at 1062 Valencia Street, the Monday Night Marsh program, May 12th and 19th, I'm going to do my stories about mothers and popes and me growing up in San Francisco. That's all, little tidbits that are part of a bigger show called Emil Amok 69. Emil Amok 69. Yeah, I did a version of that. It's the 2025 Amok monologue that I'm doing. I did it at Fresno in March. It's developed. I'm going to take it on the road, go to Canada with it. It should be fun. But little bits I'm developing. May 12th, 19th, Mothers and Popes. Monday Night Marsh, San Francisco Marsh, 1062 Valencia. Get your tickets. If you see the screen there it is. Click on that, copy, paste, whatever. Monday Night Marsh. It's really free, and it's not just me. You get some other people performing, and that's good, right? I mean, variety. I will talk about the Pope. I will talk about my mom. It's a day after Mother's Day. My mom, Mama Josie. My mom was so religious, so religious. She would be so happy. She would have been happy with a Filipino Pope, but she would be happy that there would be an American Pope, like this guy, like Pope Leo. Because my mom was all lamb. She was lamb, it's like, you don't have to fight, Emil. You can just be quiet. And that's the whole thing about this guy, Bob. Father Bob was quiet, ran a good meeting. Anyways, see my takes live in story narrative form, May 12th, 19th, SF Marsh, Monday Night Marsh. Go get them. All right, so now let's talk more about the Pope. I mean, there's stuff with Trump, with meeting with China, and now they were saying we're meeting in China. Who called who? They can't agree on that. So Trump is out there hunting for fig leaves, hunting for something to make his administration look greater than it is. Well, it's not very great at all, right? It's just hanging in there. And the economy is not so great. And what's the best Trump can say? He can say, hey, you don't need $2 or you don't need $30. You can have two. You don't need 250 pencils. You just need 5 pencils. That's the kind of economy. That's the kind of mindset for Trump. Anyway, we're going to put Trump aside because the big news is the Pope. And it's a guy who continues on in the Francis tradition, plus a guy who is still there, his own man. He's an American, Pope Leo XIV. And so let me bring up a fellow altar boy. We didn't serve at the same time, but he's a fellow altar boy. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Professor Emeritus, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, my friend and fellow altar boy. Hi, Dan. Are you excited?
Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is Friday.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see you. Are you excited about the new Pope? You got to be, huh?
Yes. I'm mildly excited. Yes.
Only mildly? It's an American.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's exciting. I mean, it's the first time. I'm mildly excited because I don't get that excited about church stuff anymore.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you've
I think I'll get excited if I see some major reform.
Yeah. I guess in the reality is he is still fairly conservative, but on the basic things, like you want a pope to be out there for the poor, you want the pope to be out there and protecting the least of us. He's all for that, but he's a little centrist, maybe to the right in terms of LGBTQ. I don't even know where he is in terms of the women as deacons. I mean, not
Right,
priests. I
right,
want to up them to priests so that
sure.
maybe someday we'll have a female pope. But he isn't even at the diaconate level, apparently. And
Yeah.
I mean, from the
I
reading,
that could change. I think it's going to come down to what the rest of the Cardinals think. I think that's going to be a major influence. I would go with allowing priests to marry. Uh,
I would too. Allowing priests to marry would go a long way,
that's right.
but and so that would be a compromise instead of letting women be priests. You just let the priests be married.
Well, I would like both.
Yeah,
I think deacons, letting them move up to being deacons would be good. They would be co-celebrants essentially of the mass, and that would be the highest position, the activity they can get, and the most the most holy of all sacraments, of course, is the Eucharist and sharing communion,
yeah.
and so that would be a big deal. But I think allowing priests to marry would be even bigger, and it would also represent
Mm,
a major reform in terms of that commitment to familial
mm,
integrity,
yeah,
right? As
yeah,
well as a recognition of by the general population of a movement forward, and I think it would be massive in terms of a recruitment device.
yeah.
Um, there's all kinds of things that we've witnessed over the past 50 years or so, and it began with a decline in the formal clergy, right? The people wanting to join the priesthood and the nunneries and all the rest.
Yeah.
And that decline began in the 60s. So at the same time that there was a liberalization of some of the church practice, including the going colloquial with the local languages
Mm,
in the celebration of the mass, particularly,
yeah.
and also a lot of taking really strong positions on social justice issues, right?
Right.
Along with that came resistance. So on the one hand, you had progressive movement within the church, and on the other hand, you had conservative resistance within the church. And the on the progressive side, I think a lot of people decided that um, the church wasn't enough, that they weren't getting enough from the church, and they left. Several of my teachers left. One priest who was actually vice principal
Mm,
of the college prep that I attended left the church eventually, and we all had to get used because he still lived in the city, and he married a former nun,
mm.
and so
Wow.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so it was kind of difficult because if you ran into him at a restaurant, the tendency would be to say hi, Father, hi,
Yeah.
and he wasn't Father anymore, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
just as heretics
it
here.
was Mr.
Just as,
Hyde. It is
yeah,
Mr. Hyde.
yeah.
And
That's so funny because uh, I got that sense that people were moving away from the church in the '60s, and then there's just a natural thing of people dropping out and becoming lapsed Catholics. They go through a cycle, and then eventually something happens. You cycle back. I've cycled back several times. I cycled away in college, cycled back when I had kids, cycled away when they got older. It's like cycling back, maybe now again with
at the
this
ripe old age of 69, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, with this new pope, right? I mean, here's the thing: the pope is just a few months older than me, and I'm thinking, God, he's the pope, and I'm here talking with Dan on the internet, and you know, if I had heard the call, I could have been pope. I could have been the pope. But now I knew instantly back when I was an altar server, because they essentially kick you out when you're like seventh and eighth grade. They kick you out, 12 and 13. You can't be older than that to be an altar boy. And I was right there at the edge. And you get confirmed, and then you got to figure out, well, what are you going to do next? You
Right.
either go hardcore and go to Catholic school,
I don't know.
or
We continued to be altar boys. I dropped out. Okay, I dropped.
well,
I was a very short term altar boy, mainly because as a newbie, I
mm,
was getting 5:30 mass. Well,
oh
it
yeah,
was
oh,
actually
that's
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock mass, but you had to be there by 5:30, get your gear on, and make sure everything was set up
ah,
right.
and that was a good thing, getting your gear on. You're like the priest. The priest puts on the cassock and all that stuff, and you got to do the same thing. I kind of got into that. I really, there was a time when I really wanted to be a priest, and then I saw myself paying less attention to my catechism teacher and more attention to my fellow catechism classmates, especially the female ones.
Aha.
And I knew that, I'm not long. I'm not long for the priesthood. I can't. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it was a
yeah.
struggle. It was a struggle, and I
I
didn't
was
even
I
know.
was I got tired of being compared to the holier than thou, straight up guys that were being seriously considered for the priesthood who
Yeah.
actually attended seminary. And I
Oh,
had the I I had mixed feelings about those people who were at the seminary because at least one or two of them were really pretty self-centered people. I
I
mean,
know.
they
They, they,
weren't great people. They were okay in terms of observing the basic rules, right?
mm,
The Ten Commandments and all that stuff. But they were rather self-interested, right, and self-serving, and you kind of got to be that way. And one person in particularly was an outstanding athlete. I mean, this guy could do anything and do it really well. Um, and he was an outstanding athlete while he was at the seminary. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was St. Joe's.
yeah, yeah.
Whichever seminary has a creek running down,
That's
the
down in
middle.
the peninsula in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Bay Area, right? Yeah, down like
There's
Palo
three of
Alto,
them. Yeah,
Menlo
St.
Park.
Pat's and St. Joe's. But
Yeah.
anyway, the point is that I saw him at the seminary, and he was the same guy that I knew before he went into seminary. Kind of self-centered, rather egotistical. He was kind of spoiled. I mean, he was the eldest of a couple of sons, of three sons in that particular family, and he was favored very heavily by his mother. He was
Mm,
very bright. He was great. He was good at everything. He was
yeah.
great in school. He did it all right.
Did he become a priest?
No, he
Say,
dropped
yeah,
out.
you can't. How can you? With you got to have a certain demeanor. And when you hear people who like the ascetic life, like being alone, are holy, are reverent, you can't be like the loudmouth guy. You can't be that loudmouth guy. Although there are some loudmouth priests, and
Yeah.
you can say, "How did this guy become a priest?" It's like,
Yeah.
because you see them usually on church media. You say, "How did this guy become?" You want
Yeah.
the modest ones, and I think that's what Cardinal Robert Prevost is. I think that's what Pope Leo XIV is. He said,
There are a lot of priests that I knew, and some of the misters that dropped out. Those are the scholastics that were studying to be priests, right?
mm,
Um, they actually did have the ego thing going, and I think they realized that. I think that when it came to, as you put it, the calling, their self interest, right, was stronger than the feeling of being called, to commitment to the church and to God and Christ and all the rest of that. And they were still very moral, very ethical, very committed to the church, but they had issues. Some of them had, the Jesuit order takes as much pride in their intellectual, and
right,
scholarly
yeah,
uh, achievement as anything. And we had members of the order that were teaching us that went to national and international conferences on the sciences and philosophy and math. You know, our first year algebra teacher took a week off to go back to DC for math conventions, right? I mean, he was that important, you know, to that process.
Yeah.
And this guy is teaching at a high school, right, at a college prep. He also taught at USF across the street, you know, because the school that I went to was right across the street, literally.
Yeah. Well,
From
there are a lot of
USF.
smart guys. The Jesuits are smart.
Yeah.
Francis was a Jesuit. This guy was an Augustine,
Yes,
which they're these are the guys.
they were the competitors. And from a philosophical point of view, they were competitors to the Jesuits. The Jesuits were very business oriented,
Yeah.
and the you know, the Augustinians were originally a monastic order.
Yeah. You
So
know, the
yeah.
thing about the Augustines, if they're out of Augustus, right, or Augustine,
Hmm.
what kind of guy was Augustine? You know, he's the guy who was the sinner who
Hermetic.
came back,
It's
but he
called
came back.
hermetic. Yeah.
Right? I mean, he corrected his ways,
Right. Right. Right.
and hermetic, just like this guy, San Guillermo, the guy with the frisbee on his head. That's San Guillermo
That's
from
a
Milwaukee City.
weird halo. You
Yeah,
know.
but you know, but when I heard it was there's something about the demeanor of Robert that fits the kind of
Yeah,
guy who would be priest.
absolutely.
Like
Yes.
I knew I being a catechism guy, you were a Catholic school guy. You know, I was not going to be seen as the guy who could be tapped to be priest, but I loved being an altar boy. I loved just the idea of the church. And you get me before puberty, and I'm with you. I'm just there. You know, and I would answer Jesus's call, but in
Yeah.
elementary school, I answered my elementary school crush's call first. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You know what
And
I call that? I call that being called in the direction of the erection.
that is well, it depends upon the basilica you're trying to erect, I guess, or the Pope hat, whatever fits under the Pope hat. I just think that if you're called, but there was a time, and my mom. I have to say, my mom. I mean, coming into Mother's Day. My mom was really religious. She never pushed me to say, "Oh,
She was very
yeah,
devout. She was a
yeah,
devout person.
very devout," but she did not say you have to be, consider the priest. I mean, there was none of that. Although, if she had, I might have been pushed in that direction. I might have said, "Oh yeah, being a priest." Because I was into the scholarly part. I was into
Uh,
catechism, and I was in there. When I was an altar boy, I was into the whole mysticism. What was I? I was 12, 13. I was there, and then I realized no, I'm I'm not answering that call. I mean, and maybe it's because the day I was confirmed, I realized I could be a soldier for Christ, but I'm not going to be the general. I'm not going to be the Pope. Although, why I have to admit, watching Prevost become Pope Leo XIV made me think, maybe, maybe,
well,
maybe it could
you
happen.
know, it may not be too late, man, because
Oh no, no,
I knew
it's
some
true.
men
Yeah.
who, after marriage, you
Mhm.
know, after their spouse passed,
Yeah.
who joined the priesthood.
No, well, maybe, but like I'm too far gone. I think. I mean, I think I no, I tried to be a deacon. They said, "Go away, you're too old." I said, "I'm not too old to be Pope." He said, "No, but you're too old to be a deacon. Get out of here. Get out." I mean, they were really not nice about it. That's why, and this is what my problem with the church. It's a it's a man-made. God might have made the church, but it's man-made rules,
Right,
and
right. There you go.
and those man-made rules
Yeah,
are
the structure is human. The
yeah, and
structure is human.
it's venal and corrupt, not venial, like venial sin,
You're right.
venal, corrupt,
Yeah.
and human, and that always is a turnoff. When you think, oh, we're all holy here, right? Well,
Well,
some of us are,
that's
and some of
why
us
the conservative element within the church, you know, if you're going to look at the Filipino American community, there is a very conservative element within the
Yeah.
Filipino community. Um,
And,
and there's a particular group that's committed to the Holy Spirit
oh
uh,
yeah.
of the trilogy. The Trinity, rather,
They
trilogy,
speak
the
in tongues.
Trinity.
They speak in tongues.
Well, they do when they get upset.
Ah, yeah. Well, I have to say that I like some conservative things. Like for example, Francis was not for the Latin Mass, but there was a priest out here where I am, and he did the Latin Mass, and I used to love going to the Latin Mass because I missed out on the
You
Latin
were,
Mass.
yeah, you were slightly altered boy. Yeah,
Yeah, no. Well, I came on as an altar boy when like Vatican II.
yeah,
So I was into the let's sing, let's praise,
yeah, yeah.
let's turn around, speak to the audience. I was into that. I really actually liked it. I mean, I was a young boy.
Hmm.
It got me more involved, and I honored that. But I was I missed the Latin Mass, and so like maybe 10 years ago, I started going to the Latin Mass, and I didn't realize hey, it's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know Latin, but you can pick up some things. You know some things. Some parts of English or Latin. I felt very reverent and holy, and it made me feel good. But I don't know the conservative. There is a real conservative streak, and one of those guys who's very conservative and Catholic is J.D. Vance, and to this new pope's um, to his credit, he went after J.D. Vance when J.D. Vance said, "Oh, you got to order your love first, your family, and then others. You got to prioritize." And then Pope uh,
That's not
Cardinal,
that's not very Jesus like at
it's not
all.
very Jesus, but Cardinal Prevost posted say, "Hey, God does not, set an order for His
And
love."
there was a reaction from,
Yeah,
of course, all of the Fox News
yeah.
corruptors.
Well,
And
yeah,
and then they started saying, this is the equivalent of telling the Pope, just shut up and pray.
yeah. Well,
Just shut up and pray.
yeah,
And they're saying, why is he going political? Well,
yeah.
you got to take it. How much do you know about the New Testament, right? I mean, let alone the Old Testament. Everything in the Old Testament was political, but in the
Well,
New
how about
Testament, we're talking about values here. We're talking about
yeah,
philosophy, right?
yeah,
And they want to make everything about right and left, and that
yeah.
stuff is a bunch of liberal crap, right?
Yeah, well, but yeah, but you know
yeah,
what's good is that Pope Leo XIV is taking a lot from Pope Leo XIII, Pope Leo
yeah,
13,
the 13th, yeah.
and the
Well, he was
13th. He
social
was
justice. He, as a concept, I mean,
yes,
and then acting on social justice.
yes. I mean, and that to me, I think is the thing that makes this new Pope, this Made in America, Made in USA Pope, so exciting because in my column yesterday, I said he is the anti-Trump. If Trump is seen worldwide as the guy who is, going to make you shake in your boots because he's going to start these trade wars, and he's going to deport you, and he's going to, crack down on the poor. He's going to elevate the rich. Thank goodness we have this American Pope who can stand up to that, who stands for real values, real morality versus the amoral Trumpism.
Yeah, corruption. I
Corruption.
wish they would. I wish they would get rid of the fight oligarchy and come up with fight corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah, the I was trying to look up the encyclical
Mm,
that Leo the 13th was most famous for, and that was the Rerum Novarum.
mm.
And the title in English was "Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor." How's that for political?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I know. He talked about unionism. He
that's
talked
right.
about
Yes.
yeah, Leo the 13th talked about minimum wage, fair
Yeah.
wage for
Yes.
people.
All of
I mean,
that.
this guy was, but he was not a socialist. He wasn't, ultra capitalist.
Yeah.
He was
He
for
wasn't
fairness.
quite Bernie. He wasn't quite a Bernie,
Right.
but he was close. He was
Yeah.
close. But when he was saying those things,
Yeah.
people who tried to organize were victims of violence. People who
Yeah.
tried to organize labor were being killed in the streets.
Yeah.
You and among them were people of color.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
African American unionists, Chinese in New York, right?
Wow.
Filipinos
Yeah.
all over the West Coast.
Well, look at
Uh,
this, 1891, right? That's when Pope Leo wrote
yes,
wrote his major encyclical.
yes,
And when did the Spanish American War happen? 1898. When
yeah,
did the Philippine
sure,
American War happen?
sure,
1899. I
sure.
mean, and colonized Filipinos came in. Like, well, Leo died, I think, around 1902, I
Hmm.
think. But think about where Filipinos were in history, and we were colonized. We were colonized, and we were brought to the United States and taken advantage of. 10 cents an hour. We needed a Leo. We needed more Leo back then.
Yeah, 10 cents
And
an hour was about the middle of the Filipino struggle. Particularly for as agricultural workers.
yeah,
But when they first started, they were subjected to even worse treatment. And the history of Filipino farm workers, the sakadas
oh yeah, oh,
of
in
Hawaii.
Hawaii, but
Hawaii,
Hawaii
yeah.
wasn't a state yet. Hawaii wasn't a state yet, so they were just exploited. That's just sure.
It was easy to do. I mean,
Yeah,
we were the next guys in line. The
yeah,
Chinese had rebelled successfully. The indigenous Hawaiians didn't want to play. They
yeah.
said we were doing fine before you got here, so we
Right.
don't need to be working for you.
Well,
Uh,
the
yeah,
cicadas were that was 1906, 1905,
yeah.
and I think 1905, and that was
Well, that was
that
only
was
a few, though. I mean, I think they asked for about 50 contract laborers
mm.
who were the first, and then only about 15 arrived as early as 1905, 1906. But it grew steadily from that point forward.
And a lot of people from my father's home province, Loag, went to Hawaii for because of that. But
Lawag is a town, is a
yeah,
city.
city, yeah. But my
The
father,
province, yeah.
my father, well, he was Ilocos, right?
Ilocos Norte.
Okay. My father did not go to Hawaii. He waited till he was older, and then he went to America. He came to America, and that was how that happened. Came to America in 1928, and it still was not great for Filipinos. I mean, what you look at the Pope in these historical terms, and then I already called him the anti-Trump, but you look at where Trump is trying to take us politically. He's going back to 1875. I mean, the Pope maybe at 1891, Pope Leo the 13th, but Donald Trump wants to take us back to 1875 with the tariffs, with American imperialism. Ultimately, 1898 exclusion laws. I mean, we're going backwards, and the Pope is really the right guy, I think, to make sure that we have a counterpoint to the Pope.
Oh yeah, I'm very much heartened
Mhm.
by the fact that this particular pope, with his set of experiences, is now the new leader of the church, and so I'm hopeful. Like I said, I'm mildly elated.
Yeah,
Uh, we just have to see what happens, particularly with the reaction from the right. You can't look at these things as major changes unless you look at the resistance as well.
yeah,
uh, and and I'm sure this is it's generating some level of confusion in the ranks. But there was a woman who was interviewed by CBS on the street interview
mm,
in Rome,
mm,
and they asked, what would you like to see before the announcement, before the white smoke,
yeah.
and I could tell from the accent that she was Filipino. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
as soon as she started talking, she was Filipino. She said, I want no divorce. No
No
divorce.
divorce.
There are
No,
people,
no divorce.
no divorce. There are people in where my apartment is, divorced 3 times. No divorce. I
Ah,
want a
so do
much more conservative, very
I.
focused
That is conservative.
on one thing. Yeah, but I mean, the no divorce thing ain't that conservative, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's not, but
yeah, but you can tell that there's going to be a whole lot of other really more conservative perspectives on
well,
that.
all
I
right.
mean,
Let's look at something like abortion,
uh, just birth control.
birth control, right?
I mean, the states that had anti-birth control laws all the way up until the mid '60s, right,
Mm,
were states that were practicing essentially conservative Christian values at the time.
yeah,
Uh, and the only thing that got over was privacy, uh, essentially a privacy argument
yeah,
in the Supreme Court. And it's interesting, right? Because
yeah.
there is no specific right to privacy anywhere in the Constitution. You know that in California's Constitution there is a specific enumerated right of privacy, but under the federal Constitution there is not. And so the right to privacy exists because of court decision. What I'm getting at is if it exists because of court decision, it can be attacked by court decision.
And reversed,
Yes, yes, it
and
can.
we saw that with Roe v. Wade,
Yes,
and we saw that with affirmative action.
and good Justice Thomas said that we should investigate right
Yeah,
contraception.
right. Well,
It
I
came
think,
right out of his face.
yeah,
To be
this is
reconsidered by the court, right?
yeah, this is the thing about current Catholicism, because you go to parts of the country, and there are Catholics who are really, oh man, their fervor. You can't, couldn't match their fervor when I was seventh grade or sixth grade. I thought I could when I was a sixth grader or seventh grader, and then I went astray, and I followed my junior high girlfriend. But I answered her call instead of
The direction of the
yeah,
direction.
But I'm just saying that there are some really, really conservative Catholics now. And you can see the young guys, like when I visit Ohio, because there's for some reason they're big. They're big in Ohio, the conservative Catholics. And you go to a Catholic church there. Like I like to when I travel, sometimes I like to go to a mass and see, what the what the homilies and see what people are thinking. And I remember being in Ohio, maybe 6 years ago. Wow, really young guys, like maybe what, early 30s, late 20s. They were really conservative. And I thought, this
How could
is,
you tell? What
just their stance on everything, on the political things. They made it almost like the right wing church was like the right wing of
the correct
politics.
church? That was the real
Yeah.
church.
Yeah. And I can see why JD Vance,
That was the authentic
is
church.
attracted to that.
Well, it could be regional culture because Ohio
Oh,
has
right,
been,
right.
yeah, it's been like that forever.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the major cases that went to the Supreme Court that defined rights of free speech, and even that defined what constitutes probable cause, right, came out of the '60s. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of East Coast cases. The contraception cases came out of the East Coast, right,
Yeah.
Connecticut and Massachusetts. Um, and as you're saying, Mapp versus Ohio. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
And that was also early '70s.
Yeah. Well, I don't really see Pope Leo XIV having to be any more political than just by being there, being an American, and letting people know that there are options before we succumb to the immoral uh, policies of the White House.
I got to correct myself. It was 61. I was thinking 71 about Matt versus Ohio. It's 61.
Oh my
Pretty early.
God!
Yeah.
Say your prayers. Bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Five,
Uh,
five our
yeah.
fathers.
There's going to be, all institutions, right, have this uh, division. In this instance, it's more obvious that it is a split. actually two sides, right, to these issues.
Yeah.
But there could even be more positions, different positions on the same issues,
Yeah.
uh, and those things are natural. But there is such a thing as regional culture and traditional regional culture that carries on through the generations, right? It gets passed
Yeah.
from one generation to another. But what you're saying when you mention that it's younger men, right, that have
Yeah.
these traditions, is much more consistent with. You're familiar with? I know you, Scott Galloway. I'm sure you're
Oh
familiar.
yeah. Yeah. I like Scott Galloway.
I do too. But his stuff really strong. He predicted the in I call it the incel effect, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, where you have guys that are having a hard time. Want to be uh, male in the traditional sense, and they want to have what they see as traditional relationships with women,
Yeah.
but they have a difficult time getting those relations, even establishing those relationships at all. That's one
No.
of the reasons they're called incels, right?
Yeah.
They're involuntarily celibate, right?
Celibate. Yeah. Well, I get it, but I think they bring it on by macho elements in the
Yes.
culture,
What? How do you
pornography
define what
elements.
is traditional? That's right. How do you define what are the characteristics of traditional masculinity?
Yeah.
And so they're looking for something that once again is overly romanticized to an extent that they're looking for something that never really existed, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the mythology of masculinity, right? And that's and then on the other hand, you've got women who have actually involuntarily displaced men,
Yeah.
okay, by simply looking forward to is getting a college education, establishing an independent source of income, and then entering the professions
Yeah.
and competing favorably against men in the professions. And on the other hand, you got men far less populating the schools. And I was seeing that. I started commenting about that 40 years ago.
Yeah, colleges, yeah, and also far yes, women far more successful. You've got relationships now where the women is the bread earner,
That's,
and
yeah.
yeah,
My
I
wife made more money than me for the first 10 years of my career
oh yeah,
because she was in the medical field and I was a lowly teacher. I was a lowly lecturer.
and I look, I know what that's like too. My wife, she went up and was an executive in her field, and I was this writer, reporter, TV, radio, newspapers, and if you got a gig, you're good. If you don't have a gig, not good. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I feel for the guys, but look at what's happened. I don't know what the answer is,
Well,
but
they've
it's been
tried to
searched.
find an answer by gaining, organizing
Yeah,
around some basic principles, and those principles are likely not to get them to the goals that they desire, and instead are more likely to self-insulate, to segregate them further, and become targets of so there's a lot of women now that not only are freezing their eggs and doing all that kind of activity,
yeah,
they're choosing to be single mothers.
right. And so what's happening with those guys who were going down a certain path? They have kind of identified themselves as the new generation of priests. I think really.
Whoa. I
Uh,
hope not.
Essentially,
I hope not.
hey, here I am. I'm celibate. I'm ready. I'm ready to be a priest. I'm because that's what usually is the thing that says I can't be a priest. I can't take a vow of celibacy.
Right, right,
And
right.
now the vow of celibacy is taken away. No, you're celibate. I'm sorry. This
Uh,
is the way it is with males now.
yeah, you
So
too horny. You too horny.
yeah,
You
you're
too
close to the
horny.
priesthood. You're closer to the priesthood now with this, you know, involuntary celibacy. So you might as well. I don't know. I just know the guys who are called into the priesthood. Some of them are pretty scary. They're so conservative.
Oh,
I find.
wow. Yeah, I haven't been watching. I haven't been looking at who's in there.
Well, look at
Yeah.
the younger priests in their 20s and 30s, and you say, "Wow, is it?" it's almost like the opposite. Leo is sort of the opposite of those guys.
Different generation,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Those guys are like the JD Vances, and Leo is really like Francis, right? The first will be last, the last will be first. Remember the poor. I mean, those are basic tenets that he upholds. Fortunately,
I wonder
and
how they feel about the eight beatitudes. I mean, everything's all wrapped up in the Sermon on the Mount.
yeah, oh
The
yeah.
eight beatitudes, you know.
Well, name a couple. Blessed
Uh, from
blessed be the
oh
blessed
sure.
be blessed be the political. Blessed blessed be
Blessed
the
are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Remember that? You got to
yeah,
be humble. You got to
yeah.
be humble. Blessed
Humble.
are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
Hey,
Okay.
wait.
Blessed are the meek.
Stop with humility first,
Okay.
because
That's number one.
that is the thing that Donald Trump has no humility.
uh,
His
yeah. No, he hates
his
humility. Are you
his
kidding? That's weakness.
yeah
Humility is weakness.
his beatitudes are
Be
his trumpitudes.
no, be an anus. Be
Being a,
be be a super anus.
I mean, it really, you know,
Crush the poor.
when they say that Pope Leo XIV, right? That they chose him because he was a humble man.
Yeah.
You can't say that about very many people who are MAGA. That's
I
not a
can't.
MAGA
I
trait.
can't think of anybody who's MAGA that's humble. You know,
I mean,
well, what do they say? They say, why did you vote for Trump?
yeah,
Because he's one of us. Well,
yeah,
there it is.
yeah.
Okay,
Or how
there
about,
it is. Okay,
I
you
would
know?
go with Maha, make America humble again. Maha,
Okay, hey, I like it. I like it.
not
Blessed
healthy.
are
Make
the meek.
America
Blessed
humble.
are the meek. That seems redundant with humble, right?
Yeah.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. There's another one that's big time mercy. Okay. Blessed are the pure in heart.
Hey,
Okay.
wait. Mercy. Donald Trump believes in mercy.
Really?
Well, I mean, he just doesn't obey the law. I mean, because
Where
he
does
is
where? Give me an indication of where he was merciful.
well, he believes in people being merciful to him. I mean, he was convicted. He was convicted felon, 34 counts.
Okay,
He
I
wants
got it.
he wants mercy. He's
Yeah, he
not
believes.
merciful.
I need your mercy.
Yeah,
I
yeah. He's
require that you give me mercy.
right. Right.
All
Give me
these people that
mercy.
convicted me of crimes, they were just out to get me from the start.
Right.
It
Right. See
wasn't.
now.
It was a manipulation of the law. It was weaponization of the law. And then you got uh, former Judge Pirro now going to be the acting, right? The
Right.
acting,
That's
attorney.
right. He shows
Woo!
no mercy. He shows no mercy, but he wants mercy. He'll take your mercy. He'll he'll require your mercy, and then if not, he'll go after you.
Yep.
So those are
Yep.
the trumpitudes. Yeah,
Trumpitudes, right?
it's
And
humility. That's so important. There are times when I really, my mother was humble. My mother was she was a lamb. She was the lamb. She would, and she tried to teach that to me. And it was when you grow up in the '80s, you know, that was a time when humility was Trump. That's when Trump soared, right? And it was all about being, looking out for number one, that kind of thing. You had to do what you had to win. And in my old age now, I realize no, my mom, she had the right way. I think.
yeah, yeah. See, the problem that I had back in the '60s and early '70s, um, that brought me into a greater position of contradiction with the church was the necessity of aggressive action in the interest of people who were underserved and traditionally suppressed
Oh
uh,
yeah.
culturally as well as politically and economically.
Yeah.
And so the more we learned, right, that's one of the reasons we wanted to start the institution of ethnic studies, uh,
Yeah.
is to fight against that, to contradict that. I mean, it was easy to win arguments about what the purpose of ethnic studies was, because all you had to do was prove that we were excluded, that there was no mention of us from history. And now they're trying to undo that.
Yeah.
So all of the work that we've succeeded in accomplishing over the past 55 years or so is being directly targeted by
Yeah.
this right extremist movement.
And it's all predicated. We got this far because we spoke out, because we were
Yeah,
allowed, because we
exactly.
we we, we dared to be the loud, disagreeable guy.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
the church's position, and particularly the Jesuit position
Mm.
on aggressive, right, representation of the people who are underserved and underrepresented. And this led, of course, to in Central America and even in the Philippines. Remember when clergy were being attacked,
Right.
and in Central America they were being murdered.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think this. I think the good thing about this new pope is that he's younger than Francis, of course. He's English, or he speaks English. He's American.
He speaks American.
He speaks American. He's from Chicago. He likes the White Sox and not the Cubs.
Yeah, he's the South End. He's the South
Yeah.
End guy, so he's a Sox guy.
And that's important because if he was a Cubby, if he was a Cubs fan, a little patrician, a little,
I want to
doesn't.
know how he wants his barbecue. I want to know what he favors.
Vegan barbecue,
Uh,
vegan.
I don't know. He might be. You never know. He might.
I
You
mean,
know.
the body of Christ. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
he eats the body of Christ.
yeah. Well, Peru though. The
Peru, oh yeah, Peru, yeah,
Peruvian
Peru.
food is really good, and they're
Peru, they love potatoes. They
uh,
got more varieties of potatoes in Peru than anything. So
well. That's
he
because
likes potatoes.
they got mountains. They
Yeah,
got mountains, but they also got seacoast, and they like fish.
ceviche. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Ceviche. Hey,
But they like potatoes and they like quinoa and potatoes.
true. That's
Oh,
true.
and they love beef heart.
Right? Beef heart.
Beef heart.
Anticuchos. Anticuchos. You're familiar. You know
Auntie,
this food, even though you're vegan. Yes.
auntie and Uncle Cucho. Yeah. I refused an anticucho about a couple weeks ago. A
uh,
friend of mine, good friend of mine, offered me some anticucho. I could not do it, but I had the potatoes. I had the potatoes.
right on. Yeah, but
You know,
what if they were right next to the anticuchos? Isn't that
well,
like that's kind of a veganist? That's a venial veganist sin, you know.
no, we allow them to coexist, but we don't try to proselytize. But I think, yeah, I think the fact that the Pope is a dual
Mhm.
citizen, Peruvian, U.S. now.
Yes, yes.
I think the Peruvian restaurants get those pisco sours out, right?
Yeah.
Get those pisco sours.
Yeah, there was one over in my neighborhood here, but unfortunately they closed. They still have the other branches somewhere around the Fillmore or something, but
There are a lot of good Peruvian places that come up,
in the
and
city, yeah, yeah, there
yeah,
are.
and I just it's just, yeah, piscos are nice. You get a good pisco sour. Anyway, so Dan, so a final thought about being a pope. About being, you never really thought about being a pope, did you?
Um, yeah, I gave it some serious consideration for a while. I think well before I was asked to, attend a seminar
Yeah.
at the seminary. I gave it some serious thought, and you know what? I wasn't yet concerned that much with the direction of the erection.
Ah.
I was actually looking at whether or not I felt enough of a discipline, right, and a
Hmm.
commitment to what it meant to be a member of the clergy. You know, um,
I don't know.
that was one
Yeah.
thing. The other thing was mean nuns scared the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, the nuns. Yeah, because
We haven't talked about that, man. But there's
no,
some
no, no.
there's
The
some
nuns,
sadistic nuns. Let me tell you.
the nuns were they actually that would drive you to celibacy. You know, if you saw the nuns and the now you're a little kid and like in the catechism, right? In catechism, you go to catechism from like first grade, right? Holy Communion class, first, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth, and it's nothing but the nuns, and the nuns drill you on that catechism. Why did God make you? Why did God make you? You want this red star? Put this red star if you answer correctly. I'll give you that red star, and then God made me because of, I don't know what, and then you say your
Had
prayers.
no meaning. You just memorized the
I just,
response.
yeah, from
Had
rote.
no
Yeah.
meaning.
But our Father, the Hail Mary, you remember that, and man, those things are locked in, and you recite it to the nun, and there were two options. You get the gold, you get the red star. She puts a red star. She stamps the red star, and if you mess up, ruler, ruler.
Yep. It got physical.
Yeah, and it just depends on what catechism you went to, but
How about the getting pinched where the sun don't shine? I mean, you
ah,
never got
I
you
know
never
that
got
didn't happen to me. I would have called the ACLU. I said, "Can you
yeah,
do that?
yeah.
Could you
No,
do
they
that?"
weren't doing that at the time. There
Yeah.
was nuns who were like I thought they must be part Filipino because they
Yeah.
knew, where to get you.
Oh, my mom was into threatening, where she had a red stick.
Oh no, none of the I saw my mother only did it a couple of times, but she did it so well and so vigorously that I think my sons and if they ever have children, their children will feel that pain.
Ooh,
They'll
ooh,
not know where it came from,
yeah.
but they'll say "woo," and I'll just tell them I think it was genetically imposed by your grandmother.
Ah,
Okay.
that's a Mother's Day thought. That's a Mother's Day. I just remember thinking my Mother's Day thought. We'll close on this because Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah, that's
And
yeah,
the
good
Pope
day.
made me think of my mother, made me think of my Mother's Day thought, and it's that I the phrase "Mommy, I need you" very
Okay.
strong, and that was you know that's my Mother's Day thought. So I'll be thinking about my mom all throughout the week. She passed away long ago, but I think of her always, and I'll be thinking about mom, and then all the new moms. Moms, think about them. Mother's Day, kind of semi-commercial holiday. If you do something genuine.
Yeah, yeah, it's not as commercialized. Yeah, that and Father's Day aren't as commercialized as I think Father's Day is a little more commercialized than
Oh,
Mother's.
I think Mother's Day is more commercialized. Father's
Well,
Day,
yeah, but it's lightweight stuff. I mean, it's not like tools
yeah.
and barbecue,
All right,
equipment.
sure. Father's Day,
That
well,
stuff's expensive. Tools and barbecue.
mothers might want an espresso machine. That's a heavy duty tool.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hey,
now
there's some on
and now
sale.
and now they're up to twice the price, right?
No, actually, there was a sale on some.
Oh,
Uh,
that means that they stocked up
yeah,
in anticipation of the tariff.
you got to beat the tariffs. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're made, but you know, you can find them. I wish that Amazon had followed up on the idea that they would put how much
The
you
tariff
pay
price,
on the
yeah.
tariff.
What's the
Yeah,
effect from the tariff?
because that
Temu is doing that.
who is
Temu.
Oh, I don't go to Temu. I
Well,
don't
I go there just to see what they got.
I don't like to shop on Temu because it just seems like I never communicate well with in Chinese because I don't understand what they're saying and they always take my money. But I know with
their,
Amazon,
their English
if
is
I,
non-grammatical. Is anti-grammatical. That's true.
yeah, if I buy a product that's made in China and Amazon and I don't like it, I know I have recourse.
Yeah,
If I
that's
buy
right.
it on Temu, whoa, what am I doing here?
They give you recourse, but right now, on some items, both Timo and Amazon, if they're low cost, like under $15 or something,
Oh, you get the tariff.
you just keep it.
Oh,
You know,
oh,
stop
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it for them to handle the postage, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you bring it to whatever you can bring it to UPS, or you could bring it to a Whole Foods, and
Yeah.
they'll pack it, but it's not worth it for them to repack the thing.
Yeah. So I've had that only maybe 1 out of 10 times, but most of the time it's Anyway, all right. One last thing. Are the Warriors cooked? Are they done?
No, I think they'll win. They may be able to win one of these two upcoming games and then just stay in it, right? Stay even.
Until Curry
But
comes back.
it's going to be very difficult for them because they seem out of sorts, right? I mean, if they had played, last night as well as they did 2 games before, it's possible, right,
Yeah.
that they could win this. But they're not cooked. But it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult.
I
I,
want to.
Kuminga came on there for the short time that he was in.
Well, he was in there long enough.
Yeah,
It's
he
just that
came in.
you can't screw up, and he was screwing up a couple of times, and then
Yeah,
he
he
heated
did.
up.
He did. But he started to hit in the last quarter. He started to hit.
When they got within seven,
Butler's got to do more. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's already does a lot of work, but he wasn't as aggressive
eh, he's getting
last game.
51 million in the next 2 years.
Yeah,
If I'm paying 51 million, you're gonna like bust your ass and go beyond. You're the other superstar. You can see the limitations of all the other guys. They're not superstars,
yeah,
and they're not. And like when Dante DiVincenzo was missing for the Timberwolves, I said, yeah, that's the way he was with the Warriors too. Runs hot and cold.
right,
And
right,
Moses Moody was cold for the
right,
Warriors.
right,
What's his name?
buddy.
Well, buddy, yeah, he's heated up a little, but then he stopped. Pazinski was
Yeah,
really cold. I
but
mean, these
but
guys, you
he
can't
wasn't
rely
just
on them.
cold. He wasn't just cold. He made mistakes.
Oh yeah, yeah, he made
You know,
mistakes.
one of
Moody,
the
they
things
threw the
that was
ball
really
away.
upsetting. One of the things that upsets me about Curry is he makes some careless passes,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
does it. He does it quite consistently.
yes. That is a problem with Curry, and you overlook it because he is Curry, and he'll shoot the three and make up for it in time. But
Well, he
yeah,
does great. He does great when he challenges the rim too. When he does
oh,
layups.
yeah,
He does those fantastic left-handed. He comes under the
yeah,
the hoop, puts a lefty in with twist,
yeah.
right? So that
I,
it comes off the glass and rolls in, right? It's unbelievable, man.
See, he can finish. It just bothers me how many times the Warriors get in the paint, high percentage shot, and they miss. But
Yeah, that's right.
Edwards is the same thing.
Yeah,
He misses. So I don't know. It just means that a player like Curry is special. Anyway, let's cross our
absolutely.
fingers and hope the Dubs.
Okay.
Get,
Yeah, and moms, all the best.
yes, yes,
There wouldn't be, it's like quoting James Brown, right? It's a man's
yeah.
world,
It's a
but it
man's
would
world.
be nothing. It would be
Yeah,
nothing without a woman or a girl,
that's right. And you know what?
especially moms.
Then we'd all be priests. We'd all be priests. Hopefully.
We'd at least be incels. Yeah, and
All
then
right.
they have other choices that they can make.
Yeah.
You know,
All right. Well, listen,
they can get AI dolls
AI
that are
dolls.
that are temperature controlled.
But just two. You only get two. You don't get 30. Just two dolls. Just two dolls. Just two
Yeah,
dolls.
yeah. Well, if you do the math, right, what is Trump actually accepting? That when you could have bought 30, you can only buy two now,
Yeah.
right? So that
Oh
means
yeah.
there's a 15 a 15 times reduction in your buying power is what he's saying. You know,
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
we'll
it.
see
So
what happens.
we're gonna have 30. Oh, now we got.
We'll see what happens. I mean, it still has not hit the people properly, and I've said in our previous shows
Yeah.
that it's got to hit him, and it's got to hit him hard and properly. He thinks that he can just pull up, like
Yeah.
he's got control of this plane, and it looks like he's diving into the ground right now. But
Yeah.
his intention was the whole time was to pull up at the last second, come out looking good, right?
Yeah.
With all these fantastic agreements and deals, right? That's what he thinks is going to happen. He's running out of time.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm hoping he does run out of time, because I think the general American public has to learn a freaking lesson. They got to
Yeah.
pay attention, man.
Yeah.
Under-
Oh no, I'm with you.
Understand the economy,
I'm with you.
understand how the economy works, for God's sake.
You know, it's a tax. It's a tax. Tariffs, a tax.
Well, and it's not only that. I mean, this is a device that he believes in. Even his own,
Right.
Republican Party members don't believe in it. They know
Right.
that, but they understand what his intent is, and they're hoping that it works. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because what they're afraid of is they're afraid that if they contradict him in any way, that they're going to get primaried. That's
Yeah.
looking like less and less the possibility now
Ah.
that Musk has been,
Now,
unmusked.
now they want to tax. They're thinking about, oh, maybe we should tax the rich. But I think this here's
Floating it. They're just floating it.
well, yeah, because they want to see how people are going to react if
That's
they
right.
well. But I saw something in the Times today that was really interesting. How do you know that something's wrong with your democracy? And the question was, if you fear speaking your mind, if you fear saying something against your government, that's how you know you're no longer in a democracy, that you're in a compromised state. And I have to admit, I mean,
There are
trying
places where we have to be on guard.
yeah,
You're right.
I'm trying not to pull any punches now, but sometimes I'll go a little further, and I'm thinking, oh, is that smart? And then people will come back and they'll say, they'll troll you, they'll threaten you in a way, and do you back down, and do you remember that the next time? I mean, it's really, I mean, that's the basic question that the Times asked.
Right.
When you want to criticize your government,
And it's going to differ. It's going to differ for people. I live in San Francisco. We both live in California. We live in Northern California, and
yeah,
even though there's a big difference between your Central Valley location and San Francisco, it's certainly not as bad as it is in Southern California, and it certainly
right,
isn't as bad as it is in Arizona, which is right across. It's only a couple hundred miles away from San Diego and Los Angeles, and it's a world of difference. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of people just zipping it up or sitting on their hands. It's a self censorship. That's the thing. Criticizing, you should be able to criticize. And it boils down to the First Amendment. Do you believe in the
yeah, it
First
does.
Amendment,
Yep. Do you
or are
really
you
believe it?
compromised by it?
You're
If
absolutely right.
you're compromised, then hey, this isn't the democracy that we had. All right. On that note,
Okay,
go
man.
out and say love to speak love
Moms,
to you.
enjoy your time with your moms. If your mom has passed, as in our both of our instances, we can recollect
Yeah,
with
say a
our
prayer.
with our spouses who are
Mommy,
also
I need you.
moms.
Yeah,
We can give a call to our favorite aunties and
yeah.
grandmas and do all that, and enjoy the time and pay some respect
Ah, yes,
to,
yes.
to yeah. Anyway,
All right,
thank you. Thanks
all
for
right,
having
Dan.
me
Hey,
on.
happy Mother's Day. There he goes. There he goes, my friend. Dan,
Regards to Kathy.
yes, yeah, and Linda too.
All right.
Regards. There he goes, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend. College of Ethics Studies, Asian American Studies, Professor Emeritus. Would have been a priest. Would have, but no. He preferred the non-celibate life, which, I think about that. I see Pope Leo, XIV, and I think, yeah, because could have been me. No, it couldn't have been me. They would. I would have blown it before. If I maybe I could have, maybe. I don't know. I just, no, tremendous success for Cardinal Bob turned Pope. You got to hang in there, right? I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, he's too young to be Pope at 69. It could be another 20, 30 years if he's healthy. Anyway, all right, that's it for our show today. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Dan says Happy Mother's Day. Just to remind you. Thank you very much for being here. Let's swish out. We like to leave with a little loving kindness. Oh, let me just remind you, Monday Night March, San Francisco, May 12th. That's on Monday. I'll talk about mothers and popes. And the 19th, I have a little segment that I do. I do a short 5-10 minute thing. I'm the opener, Monday Night March, 1062 Valencia Street. Get your tickets there on the screen. And I will see you live, San Francisco. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be happy. May you be hopeful. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Until next time. Mahal Kita.